Hey there, PDX Real Estate Podcast listeners. Before we get into today's show, I've got a real quick announcement for you, and that is that my company, TTM, is still looking to buy fixers and teardowns all over the Portland metro area, even in this post-corona economy that we have going on right now. So if you have anything that comes across your desk that may not fit the retail market, we'd love to hear from you. All you got to do is go to our website, which is ttmdevelopmentcompany.com. There's a Contact Us tab. Fill out the information, submit it to us, and we'll give you a call. Or if you'd like to, just call us at the office, 503-224-6200, and we'd love to chat with you about the property. Now, let's get into the show. This is the Portland Real Estate Podcast, your number one place for anything you need to know about the Portland real estate market, along with in-depth interviews from our local real estate industry experts. Now, without further ado, here are our hosts, Tucker Merrihew from TTM Development Company and Steve Nassar from Premier Property Group. Welcome, folks. Hey, it's Portland Real Estate Podcast. We're live, delayed with my We're here this week. We've got a Best of Masters episode, but before we get into that, I want to welcome my co-host to the show, Mr. Steve Nassar. And Joe, thanks again for hosting us here.
You bet. Hi, guys.
Joe's back in the cabin. You can see it over there. I was just very surprised to hear that at your mountain cabin, you've got three computer screens, 3 screens to look at. I'm a little jealous. I'm at home and I've only got 2.
Hey, man, it's a cyber world, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a C19 thing. It's people hire us for our brains and our marketing strategy and negotiation skills. Anyone could turn a key, right? So yeah, I have the same docking station at my house here and at our West Lynn office. And I get my notebook, plug in one cord on the side.
Yeah.
Everything works. It's charging automatically. It's terrific. So
yeah. How much time do you spend in that cabin, Joe? Like 25%?
It really depends on the season, but and there isn't a bad one up here. But I like to get here on weekends a lot, and during the week, if there's something special, like you go morel mushroom hunting, or they have a Steiner cabin tour that's pretty cool, or going for a hike. I'd say 25% accurate.
Yeah, awesome. The great place about the mountain where you're at, Joe, is 2 things. We were talking off the air. It's so close, so you can actually use it a lot. I also believe Hood River is similar in that regards. I think having a second home in Hood River makes a lot of sense too. The other thing
I was there yesterday, showing property.
Yeah. And then the other thing is the mountain's really fun in the summer, and it's really because you've got fun outdoor activities. You've got lakes, you've got the golf courses of the resort. But it's obviously a great winter destination, so it makes it fun year-round. You go to the beach, and what do you do there during the wintertime? I mean, I guess some people are into that, but...
Shouldn't bad talk the beach, Steve. You're going to have some hate. Hey, does Hood River have a different MLS?
No. Does it? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I know you can find them in our MLS.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. All right. Well, there we go. So what do we got going on this week, fellas? We're guestless, so that's just the 3 of us. But I know that we got a lot of really good topics that have been mulling around. It's been kind of a wild year, but we've got some topics, hopefully that aren't too hot button, but very informative.
It's been a wild year. You said that with a straight face. Since our last show, by the way, who would have thought that COVID would be, like second page news? There's been a lot of craziness since then. We won't go into all that. But I love your one. There was one Facebook, and Joe, you're pretty brave with your Facebook posts, like the funny ones. Sometimes I'm a little bit more cautious because I'm like, I don't want to make light of something. The one that I thought was hilarious, and I kept coming back to it, was the one that goes, It feels like we skipped the murder hornets. Did we skip the murder hornets?
Yeah.
We definitely
I don't know
did.
why that one just kept cracking me up. Like it implied like there is so much bad news around the corner. Like,
yeah,
we're getting used to it. getting used to it. Yeah.
There's been lots of good news lately, though.
Yeah.
Talking market stuff. Everybody is sort of in their glory. Great listings, priced well, flying off the shelf. You have sellers that are happy, buyers that are back in the mix. It's a little too competitive. Building is happening again. I mean, so much great stuff that we're waiting to exhale, right? And I think it happened 2 weeks ago.
The best job reports ever came out today, by the way. 2.5 million jobs created.
Hopefully it's
I
not
agree.
cooked,
I mean,
but,
my listings are moving.
do you guys feel like, because you're on the front lines, you're talking to, retail buyers, retail sellers, do you feel like that reluctance piece, that little bit of like hesitation that people had for, call it almost 60 days, do you feel like that's basically gone with the people that you're dealing with on the retail front right now?
Yeah. So before I said the high end 2 million plus, were waiting it out. They got affected by 12-15% in value, and their stocks took a dump, and they're almost back to where they were, right? I mean, they had that 30%, and the stocks are like doing well. The under 500 got phased out for, losing their jobs. And so that middle tier of 6 to, 1.25 was really fast and furious. And now everything is fast and furious.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed, I was talking to my lender just a couple days ago. The one thing that is new and it's still being figured out is the PPP loans. So if you think about it, most people, and that's affecting what I'm noticing and hearing is it's affecting the higher end market, right? Most people, a good chunk of people who are buying, say, $1.5 million, $2 million house are usually self-employed. Well, a lot of self-employed people ran out and got these PPP loans. And even people who weren't in dire situations is what she was saying is, a lot of people that came out and they didn't know what the future held. So they would run, apply, get the PPP loan. Well, now what's happening is, they're going and applying for mortgages and the lenders are going, what do we do with this? Like, are you in a dire situation? Why is this money suddenly, it's being viewed as a distress signal. And so there's a little uncertainty about that. Now, whether that gets resolved, is to be seen. And it probably will, but it's a little bit of a new world that they're in right now.
How, I'm just curious, like documentation wise, because I'm thinking about this from a lender perspective, like how does the lender see the PPP money? Like, are they they want year-to-date P&L and it just shows an influx of PPP capital into the business? Or does it show up as an actual loan? I mean, it can't show up as a loan on your individually on your credit report. So I don't know, maybe it's a good question. One of the lenders.
P&L. Probably
I heard the little $2,000 spiffy could be used towards down payment. I read that somewhere.
Oh yeah, you mean yeah.
Whatever the $2,000 thing was could be used towards down payment or closing costs or something. And I know that's different from the PPE, but it was still like incentive,
Yeah. The PPP loan definitely should not be going to down payments. I think there would be big problems from that. I think there's strict earmarks for what that can go to. The other thing that I have a client right now who's dealing with is she's in a business that kind of got closed down for 2 months, and now they are asking for a P&L. And so again, there's just challenges being worked through. Of course, that P&L is going to look terrible for the year. Your year-to-date is going to be garbage if you were closed down to 0 for 2 months or 3 months. So those are some of the challenges affecting self-employed people who, if you, again, generally speaking, are a little bit higher price points, right? So that, I think, is affecting a little bit of the higher end market. But outside of those lending issues, and I mean, I think people are definitely, the reservations about doing something seem to be a lot better. That's for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if like underwriting moving forward, if you show a donut this year, if they're going to hold that against you, or if they're going to decide like we're just not going to look at 2020 income. We just want to see 2019. We want to see year to date 2021.
No, they
We'll
don't
just-
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they
know
don't do
they
that,
don't,
which
but-
is ironic, right? I mean, that's the catch-22. Of course, they know you were closed down. They know it wasn't your fault. They know why, but then they're hitting you for on the P&L and going, well, we have to look at this because they're following guidelines that they've always had. So
Yeah.
They'll figure it out slowly. And, you know, talking with Kurt with RMLS, I said, hey, what about days on market? What about coming soon? Wine this early in the morning, Steve? Really?
wine.
I love those
Orange
Yeti
coffee.
wine cups. You can't break them, and they keep it the perfect temperature. But what RMLS's view on that, they said, look, everybody knows that it's the COVID deal, and we want our data accurate. So he said, we're going to keep the days on the market. We're going to keep everything exactly the same. We just need the lenders to figure it out, right? And there's no precedent. So they're going to wait until one forward-thinking lender is going to make a loan, and then everyone's going to follow suit.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what happens.
When are we going to get Kurt on here, by the way? I've been meaning to reach out to him. Did you talk to him recently, Joe? Let's get him on maybe next week if
Yeah, he wanted to wait because
he wants everybody to forget what happened in January of this year for MLS. Is that what he wants
it
to wait
was
for?
what's it, Paragon. He's kind of waiting to tell us new things, including Paragon, which is the new MLS system that feeds into MLS. It's not unlike, I think that's what Willamette Valley uses. And so he wants to come on when he has lots of stuff to say.
Oh, he's got plenty to talk about. Come on, Kurt.
Yeah, I mean, Kurt's never short on things to talk about, but
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, he'll have his microphone queued up. He's a professional.
We'll get him on here. We'll get him on here soon
Yeah.
enough. Okay. Well,
So this is our first
do we got?
Best of Masters live, by the way, guys. So we're going to be doing bear with us. We're going to be doing some toggling and searching and finding posts as we go through these. I'll kick it off if you guys are good with that. I'll start with
Sure.
the two that I brought up, and then Joe, you can tee up the ones you found. The two that I brought up, if you actually think about it at a high level, they kind of show you the quick shift we've gone, you know, from being in a market that was anemic and slow moving and sluggish to now everybody being busy again, right? I mean, it wasn't but, you know, a few weeks ago, a couple months ago at the most, that we were on here and, you know, Terry Sprague was telling us like, hey, any agent, call me. I've got time for you. I'll take your calls. We'll chat about, you know, whatever you want to talk about. Now we're seeing posts where nobody's getting back to anybody and there's frustration. So let's talk about those. So Diane, I'm going to try this. Labont, something like that, on June 3rd, which is a day or so ago, 2 days ago, to let agents know their offer was not chosen, what do you do? Call and explain, text, or question mark. I thought it was an awesome post. I loved the answers because they really showed people thinking it through and that there isn't a one size fits all. It really depends on the extenuating circumstances. Joe, you want to lay into that one?
Or there was kind of a
Yeah.
second post that tied into that, but I don't know. We could go into that after you guys explain. But
So we'll start with that one, and then we'll transition to Brian Belair's post, which is, what if they never get back to you? Then what do you do? Like, how do you elevate it? And that one got interesting, and there was a little bit of snippiness in there.
No, not on Masters ever.
never, right? Yeah.
Well, so first of all, when an offer is presented to a seller, they have three options. They can accept it, they could reject it, or they can counter. And in the reject it field, you know, they don't have to have a written response. They could just say, I'm not accepting it, forget it. And then I think it's up to the agent to maybe document, hey, I presented it and the guy said it's a terrible offer. Brian's post, he said both of those listings were on the market for a while. So these people kind of came in low, and I don't know if that's a chop them off at the knees low or maybe just seeing what they can get. But sometimes if they're low enough, the people, my clients would say, look, that's terrible. No, not taking it. And they don't spend any more time on it. No signing, no nothing. And it's difficult because that other broker is not 100% positive that their offer even got presented. So what I try and do is write a little note or say rejected per phone conversation or something to that effect. I am guilty of not getting back to everybody when I have multiple offer situations, because I mean, you're in a blender for 12 hours with all of these texts and phone calls and emails and offers coming in and love letters and all this stuff. I want to focus on accepting the one, putting a different one in backup if that's the case. And then the rejecting ones, I call them personally and tell them, and I tell them how much I appreciate them showing the house and taking the time to write an offer. But I sometimes fall down on getting them the thing that's signed that says rejected.
So you call them. You actually give them a call and say, hey, sorry, bud, it didn't work out. That's good for you.
Look, every single person, what's really funny is I've had sellers that have like 20 people go through the house and then they'll get an offer. And this person writes an offer and, maybe it had a little work that it needed, maybe a little bit lower. And, the seller's kind of posturing and, this is a low offer. And I tell them, I'm like, look, if you're going to really get mad at anybody, get mad at the 20 people who came in, showed your house and left and sold them something else, right? We have a gift in our hand and it's our decision to figure out what to do with it. Accept, reject, counter, get mad at everybody else. These people took the time to write an offer, and every offer, except the really low, terrible, trying to steal the house, not buy a house. I appreciate it. And I want those brokers to know whether they get a thing that says rejected. Sometimes I fall down on that, especially if I'm just going nuts, but I call each and every person.
Yeah, one of these posts, I don't know if it was this one or the Brian Belair's one. One of the people said they had a listing that was two, I forget which side of the transaction, if they're the listing agent or the buyer's agent. It was $211,000 and somebody made an offer $100,000 under asking price. That is a down and dirty offer. Like, that is in the mud. But and you can ruffle some feathers with those offers.
That's a Corona offer right there. Yeah,
that's a offer on life support, DOA. So here was what was cool about this post. I really enjoyed this post because I thought I think some people were quick to just go, and I don't know if this was your approach, Joe. Some people were just quick to go, always call, always call, always call. And I think that's just too simplistic. Call is awesome, make no mistake. But I mean, I think you need to take into account the communication done prior. Like, if you sent me an offer and you never called me and you just sent me an email with an offer attached, I don't feel like I owe you a call. Now, if I want to call, hey, bonus points. I don't think it hurts. But I mean, you establish the line of communication your way, of your preferred way, so I can follow suit, and I think that's completely acceptable. Now, if you called me, then I think there's an argument that I owe you a call. If you texted me, then again, I think there's an argument that a text is fine. If you never called me but you were texting and sending offers. The other extenuating circumstances brought up by a lot of these great comments was, how many offers do you have? If I have 20 offers, am I really going to call 20 people? Hopefully, and by the way, if you have 20 offers, you probably underpriced it, so maybe you deserve to be punished by calling 20 people. But But so there's just a lot more to it. And I thought this post really was well laid out in that regards. And then someone brought up, well, what if it is a 211 listing, listed at 211 and someone offers you 111? Do you really owe that person a call? So there's a lot more to it than the surface, like calls are always best. Now, that said, I want to give a shout out. I want to mention that calls always should be how you should deliver bad news. And I'm shifting slightly. If you're in a transaction and there's bad news, say your appraisal's low, they're terminating, I do think a call is warranted. And this is a little different than the post, but I want to give a shout out to Justin Harnish. He's a busy guy. He's the top agent in the area. I was in a contingent offer with him and we got bumped. Like literally we had been joking about, hopefully we don't get bumped. Oh, you've been on the market this house has been on the market for a while. We probably won't. Well, literally we got the contingent offer accepted like 3 days later. It was 8:00 at night, 7:30. I get a call from Justin. I'm like, hey, Justin. And he's like, oh my gosh, I've got bad news for you. And he told me on the phone, we just got another strong offer, we're bumping you. So kudos to him. He was delivering really bad news and he did it the right way. He could have hid behind an email. He could have shot a text, but he did voice to voice, communication in a fluid manner where I could ask some questions and then I could turn around and deliver to my clients, in an educated sense. By the way, if you call and they don't answer, you are allowed to leave a voicemail. I also believe that. Like you tried, you don't have to say, hey, call me back. You don't have to say, you don't have to text them and say, call me back. I think if you called and they're not able to take the call, leave a voicemail, and that is effectively the same. So those are a couple of my thoughts. You two go. I want to read some of these good comments here.
I think it depends on the number, honestly. I mean, we had a house that was listed for $1,150,000 or something, and we had a couple people reach out. They're like, I'll offer you $900,000, and it's like it was just an absurdly stupid offer, right? The house sold for way more than that. But the point is that if it's the cut them off at the knees offer, as Joe kind of referenced, I think there's kind of a little bit of there's rules of engagement with the cut you off at the knees offer, right? It's kind of like, well, do you really deserve a callback? I mean, did you really expect it to be accepted, first of all, right? Like, I think the only communication you get is, yes, we're incredibly desperate. We're not going to drop the price first, and we're going to take that number, right? Like, that's really the only communication you should expect to get out of a situation like that. And especially if you just send it over and you don't have a conversation first, right? Like if it's just like an emailed offer at 50% of list price or whatever, I just don't think it's worthy of a conversation, right? Because you're not having a conversation. As much bullshit as that conversation may be to try and justify the offer on the front end, like you're not spending the time to have that conversation to try and convince the world that you're right and they're wrong on their pricing. You just send it over blindly and hope that it gets accepted. So in that case, I don't think it's really deserving of anything. But outside of that, I think, the niceties should play in.
Mm-hmm. I want to read one comment. Annie Pasbrick. She brought up another extenuating circumstance. I mean, she's agreeing with you, Tucker. On the receiving end, I appreciate a call when we were close, and am fine with a simple text when there were several others much stronger offers on top of ours. Either way, I'd like a follow-up written communication for record keeping. But I mean, that's kind of the same thing, right? If you're in the hunt and you feel like you made a valid offer, then it's a little bit more, I think, a call is more in order than if it's a way off offer and there's way higher ones than you. There was some talk about education or feedback on the offer. I thought those were interesting threads and comments, and there was both sides of them, and I see both sides here. Some people were saying, well, you should call me because I want to know what was wrong with my offer and what we could have done. And if nothing else, I want to be able to convey that to my client, but also I want to be able to maybe learn something moving forward, which is valid. I see that side. But then other people were saying, yeah, but then you're just going to grill that person's going to grill the other agent and go, well, what was wrong with the offer? How much is the other offer? And then there's a pressure to disclose stuff that they don't feel comfortable disclosing. I thought that was an interesting line.
I mean, it's only three things, right? Price, closing timeline, and amount of financing, right? So whatever you wrote it's one of those three factors as to why you didn't get accepted. So I don't know how much education needs to go on. Like, you got three buckets. So
Yeah.
figure it out, right?
Yeah. And it's usually price.
Yeah, usually price. So there you go.
Yeah.
A lot goes into the responsiveness too, because people say, hey, we see lots of posts on here about when I ask for feedback, give me constructive feedback. Just don't say, hey, it wasn't right for them. Maybe give them something tangible that they can go back to their clients and say, hey, here's specific feedback on your property. But when you call these people for feedback and say, yeah, it smelled like cat pee and the carpet was terrible. And then instead of receiving that constructive criticism, they get defensive, right? So when you're calling to tell somebody that your offer didn't get accepted, they're supposed to be receptive of why it didn't get accepted, so they have something tangible to give their buyers. Because there is a little bit of blowback when you write offers for buyers in a competitive market and you are losing again and again and again, and your people are 0 for 6, they are going to maybe bridge the gap and say, maybe it's that guy. Maybe we're not getting the deal. He's not a good negotiator. Maybe we go from the listing agent next time. And so in certain circumstances, when I had like lots of offers, I would do an email to everybody, and I would put the email in a blind carbon copy so nobody can see each other. And I would say, I would like to appreciate, I would like to tell you how much I appreciate all of you showing the property, bringing offers. We had 9 offers total. Not one of them was less than full price. 2 of them were cash. And I could just say this stuff and email it when I do email it to people. And then they can go back to their buyers. And if you say, hey, that 2 of them were cash, well, 7 people are going to say, yeah, they had 2 cash offers. So your VA no down offer didn't get accepted, and that's probably why. But I want to give them something that they can tell their buyers as to why we accepted a different one, if it isn't, like Tucker said, point blank obvious.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a good way to do business, because people are on the other end. I mean, I'm not an agent, but obviously you have to be able to communicate with your clients, right? And say, why didn't it get accepted? And generally it's obvious, but if it's in a tight race, like, we had in our office here, we wrote an offer with Carolyn, who was on the show the other few weeks or a month ago, whatever it was, right? And she, we didn't get the house, or the clients didn't, but she was very good at communicating and basically saying, look, it was a tight race, but here's why, right? Cash wins in that case, right? Cash wins. So there you go. You communicate it and everybody understands and you kind of move on to the next.
We're all professionals, and we all want to look good to our clients, and we all deserve to look good to our clients. And honestly, we should help each other look good to our clients. Which brings up another point. What's that?
That's a great point, Steve. We should help each other give a soft landing to their buyers. Give them some tangibles that they can say, hey, we didn't win. And I talked to Steve, I talked to Joe. This is, Tucker, this is what the reason was specifically. There's only so much we can say, but we're trying to have these people save face with their buyers, because buyers get frustrated and pissed. And if their conversation with their broker isn't such, then, they might find a new one. And so we want to make sure they maintain those relationships.
If there's anything I would hope the last couple of years have shown us, is that the greatest competition and the greatest threat to us, to me, Steve Nassar, or you, Joe Festolo, as a realtor, is not other realtors. It's outside forces trying to impact our business. Technology, iBuyers. So when we help each other, when I help you, Joe, look good to your clients, they go back into their little world and they go, I loved my realtor, Joe. He was awesome, right? And when you do that to me, my clients do that. And when we help the consumers believe in us as realtors, we are by far helping everybody in our industry. And when we don't do that right, and there's frustrations, then they're going to start saying, hey, what can technology do? This process doesn't work. One of those things that was brought up was don't click pending until you've notified everybody. That's a big thing. And I totally get it. I mean, in that same vein, and sometimes I've seen it where they do it because their phones are blowing up, but you got it at the very least, their phones are blowing up. And usually my experience would say that you probably underpriced the house dramatically, and shame on you. Even though it happens accidentally, I get it. But just do a courtesy and do the blind copy. Grab everybody. I believe you can use Sentry Lock to help you with this. Like, it can grab every email address of everybody that's shown the house and just quickly blind copy. In case you had an offer on this property, just want to let you know we've accepted one. There'll be more further communication, but we are clicking pending, something like that, so that all those agents with those offers on your listing aren't suddenly getting inundated with phone calls from their buyers going, well, I guess we didn't get it. I see it's pending, which just makes them look terrible.
And it could happen like almost simultaneous. Like let's say there's 3 people to notify. You can call and leave 3 voicemails and then say, hey, I'm good, and then hit the button. I am guilty of, it takes a big man to say they're wrong. I misdialed a broker to call them and leave a voicemail, and it just said, please leave a message at the tone. It didn't identify a name. I didn't know it was the wrong number. And then I got a kind of a friendly WTF, man. It shows up as pending, and you didn't call me. And I'm like, oh, I did. And I'm like trying to prove it and go through my phone, and I misdialed. It's a broker I've known for a while who I like. And that's like the worst thing I could have done inadvertently. But I see Grady Nelson commented that he wrote 21 over ask, and the same thing happened. Matter of fact, there's a new thread for maybe the next best of masters, talks about deadlines. This is kind of a sticky situation. If someone says, hey, we got an offer, our deadline is Sunday at 7 p.m. and we're going to review them Monday morning. Well, that's the deadline. But if someone comes in with fire, 35 grand over ask, cash, no nothing, and a short fuse on that, those deadlines can change. And all you brokers out there, don't shoot flames at the realtor, because look, we're the instrument that helps our clients make decisions, binding contracts for buyers and sellers. Ultimately, they make the decisions, and if the deadline changes, that's an on you thing. Get your offer to them before that deadline. Stay in constant contact with them. Anyway, that's another good topic, is deadlines. And
yeah, we just got a comment from Grady Nelson. Thank you, Grady, for watching us live. Just had one where we wrote 21,000 over. I pre-called the agent and yet never heard from them and knew it wasn't accepted because it went pending and my client saw the notice. Okay, so there's worst case scenario. But look at this. It goes, it was accepted prior to the deadline on the RMS confidential. Shouldn't you change RMLS? If you're accepting one, shouldn't you change it and say sorry, or put something in the private comments?
I got a crazy offer. So yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So terrible position for Grady, and it's really unfortunate. I wanted to give a shout out to Dill Ward. She said, send whiskey. Remember, the question was to let agents know their offer was not chosen. What do you do? Call, explain, text, or question mark. She said, send whiskey.
That'll help.
So that was cool.
Yeah. It's always recommended.
Yeah, let's transition over to Brian Belair's question. So his is the next level of this. So imagine that you send over the offer and they don't even respond. I thought I printed it out. Maybe I do have it here.
I mean, the gist of it was basically you send over the offer, you don't hear a response, you follow up with, email, phone call, pigeon, whatever it is, right? And you're still not getting anything from them, puts you in a tough spot. Number one, because you're just kind of irritated. But number two is what the hell do you tell your clients, right? I'm assuming that was the gist of it.
What do you tell your clients? What do you do? I mean, this one kind of went down a few rabbit holes of, do you reach out to their principal broker? Do you call the seller? That was a new train of thought to me, like the idea of calling the seller directly, like finding their number and going, hey, I just want to let you know I made an offer. Did you get it? I'm personally not super comfortable doing that, but I'd welcome your guys' thoughts. I mean, Tucker, what if you had multiple offers on one of yours and agents were calling you directly? Or Joe, what's your thoughts on all that?
I mean, I wouldn't care personally, but I think that if it was a retail situation, I mean, they're probably calling me because it wasn't the best offer, right? But hopefully we wouldn't get to that. In a retail situation, I don't know. I see that just causing all kinds of friction between agents and people, but I don't know. What's your take, Joe?
Well, you don't right a wrong by creating a wrong. And if you look at, as an analogy, there was a great injustice that happened with a white man killing a black man, right? It was murder. Everybody knows it. Burning down the city hall in your friggin' city isn't going to help that situation. So I think if we break our parliamentary procedure of my clients are my clients, your clients are your clients, neither should we speak. If I were to Spokio or whatever and find that seller's information and contact them directly, I'm no better than the guy who is shining you on. But I would try and escalate it a different way. At the end of it all, Brian said he wrote 2 low offers and he didn't really specify how low. The worse the offer, the lower the quality of response. I mean, if someone gives you a crappy offer,
good correlation.
I'm not going to call them and have a conversation like angels singing and butterflies. And I'm just going to say, yeah, we rejected your offer. It was crap, by the way. I think you already knew this in advance, but it's my duty to tell you. Next time, call me and I'll save you 20 minutes of writing the thing.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
I think that's a good point. Like, make a call and be like, hey, is it worth even writing it 100 when it's listed at 200? And the quick answer is generally no. Okay, thanks. I'll let my clients know. Like, that seems to be like maybe the more fluid way to deal with just the thought of even writing an offer like that. Because then if it's, I mean, I've done that many times, and I'm not saying I'm a bottom fisher, but I've been like, if something's on market a long time, it's obviously not selling. I'll talk to the agent and be like, is it even worth? I mean, are they there mentally yet? No. Okay, no problem. Right. Pass.
You can also ask for comps. That works well. Sometimes a listing is overpriced, and when it is, rather than writing a lowball offer, it can be beneficial just to call them and say, hey, my buyer's interested. They're a little concerned with the price. Can you share with us the research and the comps that you use to justify this price?
It's kind of an asshole move, though, don't you think?
Like, I don't think so. Do you think that is, Joe?
I think it's an asshole move.
I think that's a great prelude to a low offer. I mean, that's better than the low offer.
I agree with you. It's a good prelude to a low offer, but don't you think that comes off like an asshole? Like, it kind of does, right? Because you're saying, hey, you didn't value the property right. Can you send me the data that proves that you don't know how to properly value the property?
No, well, most of the time it's not the agent. Agents don't willy-nilly like to overprice things. Usually,
I know, but it's still a friction-filled situation, right? Like whether they have to do it because the sellers were pushing them to list there or they did it. It's still you're questioning their ability to value the asset, right? Which, I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it will create friction. I mean, I can't imagine you're going to have a great transaction moving forward if by some grace of God you meet in the middle and you end up, striking a deal. So
I've had it asked of me, and I view it as an opportunity. Honestly, I see it differently, Tucker, and you and I don't usually agree. I see it as an opportunity. Like, hey, you're interested in my property. Usually I'm going, yeah, there might be a little meat on the bones. Let me do some research. And you try to share your data. And Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at least it's an opportunity to try to justify your side of things, and you can then say show me why you think it should be worth less. I mean,
I
that's
just feel like it's kind of like arguing politics on social. Like everybody's digging in, right? Like I'm going to give you comps that support it. I'm going to give you comps that don't. And it's so, I don't, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just kind
arguing politics on social media doesn't work. What? Huh?
of just a hunch. But.
Yeah. So one of the questions here that I want to address, I want to get your guys' take on, is the idea that, and it's not an idea, it's a very nice thing to have happen. In a perfect world, it always would happen, but we don't live in a perfect world, unfortunately, is the idea of getting rejection on the offer. That's one thing. A lot of people say they want to know that their offer was presented. They want proof of that, so they want to see a seller sign rejection. My personal take is, if you have 2-3 offers and they want that, go for it. But sometimes you do have 10 offers and the seller doesn't want to sign 10 rejections. So there's a lot of debate around that, and there's debate around what's required and what's absolutely protocol. And I don't think it's black and white. What do you think, Joe?
I think what they really want to find out is that their offer was presented and there isn't funny business going on. That's basically it. And they might have somebody, their TC, who says, hey, I need a rejected on this piece of paper, and they're hounding them. But I think what they really want to know is, my offer was presented in its best light and we lost. And I think a lot of it kind of depends on who that listing agent is and their reputation and their MO. And if it's somebody that seems a little schmarmy, maybe you do want that rejection on the piece of paper. Look, if I presented an offer to either one of you guys and you just said, hey, I got beat out, then I'm good with it, right? I don't need anything else. I know it's been presented at face value. I'm good. And you cannot force your seller to sign a rejection. Ignoring it is a rejection. It's just harder to prove. So I think at that point is when you type something up and say, my seller had a great offer and a backup. He rejected all the other ones that were lower and didn't go through and sign every page or reject it. So let this be your notice. That's all they need. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Steve, you're winning the online who's right, who's wrong with our argument, by the way. So Angie Taylor posted. She said that I'm wrong, you're right. So in an era where nobody admits wrong on social media, maybe I am wrong. So I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Maybe there's a hope for politics someday. Maybe. Nah, probably not. Yeah, let's read it. Angie Taylor Arnett. I don't think having comps makes it look like an asshole move, but rather it can have an opportunity to actually show the buyer where the other side is coming from, especially if the buyer broker isn't super disked in or familiar with the neighborhood. It can be an opportunity to meet in the middle. It depends on how you phrase the question. I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Angie, for making me right and Tucker wrong. But back to our thread here with Brian. Oh gosh, where was I going to say here? I mean, I agree. I think ideally you want to give them rejection, especially if they're asking for it. One of the things people say that I want to point out, it is the seller's ultimate decision. We have a code of ethics, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, didn't they recently in the last couple of years add to the code of ethics that you have to show proof of all offers being submitted? Wasn't that an official change? You're supposed to try, or you're supposed to make it obvious.
Well, I that's been there for a while.
Maybe it's been there for a while. Okay.
There is a section to reject, but what I'm saying is you can't force your seller.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. The seller doesn't have a code of ethics, so they don't have to, and we can't force them. But that said, the one thing that I think would be a disservice to not acknowledge is usually, sellers do what we tell them to do. I mean, if we say, hey, you know what, they're nice people, we should probably give them rejection. They'll do it. Where it gets a little bit different is when there's just a gazillion of them. So, Joe, move us on to your next question. I think we've
Okay. So this is interesting. Annie Passbrigg, and this is just 19 hours old. So I was searching RMLS today for some options for a client, and I came across a listing that is giving me pause. In the second photo, there is a giant Confederate flag flying in the front. It personally makes me feel uncomfortable. Do I reach out to the listing agent and ask for context? Do I send it on to my client with a note about the flag? Do I just ignore it? What would you do?
Wow, this one's crazy, guys. This
Loaded.
is crazy.
This is a loaded question.
But in Portland, Oregon, this is nutso. I just want to point out, if anyone wants to text me privately, the address 503-805-5582. The address I would like to pull up in RMLS. There, it is not mentioned, and nor do we need to out the address on this show. But I would like to look in RMLS just to see this, because that's, especially in this environment, man, that is something to have a Confederate flag in your main photo or one of the photos.
Well, let's just break it down to simplicity, right? You're trying to market a home for sale, put it in its best light. I think we can unanimously agree that probably doesn't put it in the best light, right? In terms of marketing a home for sale. So probably not a good idea. You know, what else that when I see that causes pause, I don't want to compare the two, but I see it and I'm like, what in the hell were they thinking? Which people see this and they say that is when you leave a roller basketball hoop in front of the house when you take a curb shot of the home to try and make it look good. Roll the basketball hoop out of there, right? I see that, and nice homes too. But anyway, my segue. What do you think, Steve? What
well,
should we do?
Poor John McKay. He's a great guy. He's actually with our company, and I don't refute him. He was trying to make the case that there are people who view it as heritage or Southern pride. And probably they're older people, right? Do you guys remember the Dukes of Hazzard? Do you remember the roof of that car? I mean, that was in the 70s, right? It was mainstream then. So, there are people who are probably in their later in life, 80s, that's just what they grew up. It was okay. There was monuments all over their states growing up where that was like a sign of, but that should have changed over the years, and I'm not justifying that by any means. But so John was trying to make that point, and I think he got kind of railroaded, and yeah, and I don't think it was. I mean, he has the right to make that point, is what I'm saying. He wasn't justifying that it's okay to have the flag. People were saying in this thread they are 100% racist, and I would probably say they're probably 99% racist, but there's an outside 1% chance that they're completely delusional or something. And I think that was kind of what he was trying to say is, we can't speak to what's in their heart or mind. It definitely, I would be curious the conversations that happened between the agent and those people.
Or did they not have one? Maybe they didn't have one. That's why it's there, right?
How do you not have that conversation? Like you said, Tucker, I mean, forget the fact, just view it like a basketball hoop in front of the house. This is all emotions, all, everything about what the flag represents aside. Just say, this is how you will alienate some of your buyers. By the way, it's all supply and demand. Economics 101. The more buyers that want your house, the more money your house is worth. Why would we ever want to alienate any buyers or have it be, something that is a distraction from the process? Yeah, crazy town. Have I got any text yet?
Well, text it around later and we'll see where it is. I'm curious.
Somebody text me that address and I'll get it to you guys so
Okay.
You can look at it. Anything else on that one? I mean, especially in light of the times we're in, I think we're in a Me Too type movement right now, which is awesome. I think it's it's needed. And but just like with that, you just have to be so careful these days. Anything, you know, everybody's looking for signs of problems. And when people are looking for racism or something that indicates racism, a lot of times they'll find it where it isn't. So definitely we and our clients should be going out of our way to, you know, avoid that scrutiny and err on the side of being cautious in all ways.
Yeah. It's just about putting the best foot forward with the house, right? Make it appear as good as possible so you get the most money as possible. Kind of goes hand in hand with me.
But there's one other component to this. So the question was, so we've talked about the flag on the house and what that means and all that from the seller standpoint. The question was, and I don't think we've addressed this, I was searching RMLS today for some options for a client. I came across a listing that gives me pause. In a second photo, there's a giant Confederate flag flying in front. It personally makes me feel uncomfortable. Do I reach out to the listing agent and ask for context? Do I send it to my client with a note about the flag? Do I just ignore it? What would you do? The one comment that I thought was valid, I mean, there's a lot of valid comments, but one that I thought was interesting, from a buyer's standpoint, if your clients like the house and it works for them, it's almost advantageous that stupid seller is shooting themselves in the foot and causing other buyers to pass it over. Because now you, from the buying side, if you can put your emotions aside, and especially as realtors, that's our job, right? Let the buyers be emotional, let the sellers be emotional. Our job is to just be little Vulcans with no emotions, right? It's a Star Trek.
Well, we got it. Yeah.
Let your client, I would have a conversation going, whoa, you know, this is crazy town. I'm not sure what's going on. If you still like the house, this might be an opportunity, because these guys are making some poor choices, in my opinion, that is going to hurt their listing. We might have less competition. We might be able to get it we may be able to get it instead of a multiple offer situation. We may be able to get it less than we otherwise would. How do you feel about this buyer? So you guys feel any different on that, or thoughts?
So I'm gonna be the unpopular belief here. So I'm sure I'm gonna have flaming arrows shot at me, but look, right now in society, everybody has diaper rash about everything. An example, you put a sign in your yard and say Black Lives Matter, for example, right? That's a statement. And then you have other people saying, well, hey, all lives matter. So you're being a prejudice because you're saying Black Lives Matter, but all lives really matter. And where does it stop with the flag, right? What if it was a rainbow flag, you know, or it's a Confederate flag? Here's what I know. As a listing agent, I would say, hey, we want to depersonalize your house, but not make it void of all personality. Strip down some of the family photos, get your political and religious stuff out of there. The only thing I need to think about as a potential realtor bringing a buyer to this is there any safety issues for the people I'm bringing there? That's really it. Because every time you close on a house, those people who are waving whatever flag they have aren't going to be there, right? So what does the house look like? Where is it? How well is it priced? And I don't care what kind of flag they have there. And yeah, I agree with you. If you have something that's offensive to a lot of people, it might work better for your buyers. But I see the Confederate flag. I think a Dukes of Hazzard. I think a Leonard Skinner. I think a Whiskey and Guns. And I think of the South. And there's also some horrible stuff associated with it. But it's not my listing. If it was, that flag would be out of there. But it's not my listing. And if I'm bringing a buyer, all I need to think about is what's the culture and the could my buyers go there and be safe? Are we walking into harm's way for whatever it is, whatever sign they have hung in their living room or any of that stuff? I'm just worrying about safety. Other than that, we're going to make our basis on the home based on market value. And so I agree collectively with the group. I would advise my clients to take that down as a listing agent, but they can have any flag or anything they want inside. It's not going to stop me from trying to find the best property to my buyers. And I would hope that my buyers wouldn't be so butthurt about whatever sign or flag or widget that is in the house that they would exclude it from seeing it if it very well could work. So you got to remove those emotions from it as long as everyone can go look at it and feel safe.
Emily Hetrick, great comment here. My stager has a great script for getting sellers to remove stuff like that. Everything from religious stuff to sports memorabilia. Anything like that could alienate somebody. You know, it's true. I sold a listing in Tigard on Summerview that had what I called the beaver room, right? It was this room. You can actually give you guys the address. You can go on RMLS and you'd pull it up. It was a room. It was a shrine to the Oregon State Beavers. And there was too much to go at, but I knew in the back of my mind, I mean, people aren't going to not buy the house, but why do you want to, create, and that's probably the most benign form of this.
Well, unless you're a duck, and then, that's a heated argument, but
yeah, but it's just, you want to, neutral's good on this stuff. There you go. Yeah. No, Emily said exactly. No Ducks fan is going to love that. Yeah. So, and Eric Post likes your advice, Joe. There you go.
Yep. It's I think it's look, doing our job, right? We're there to move real estate and make people happy, and it's independent of the seller's views. Gosh, I've sold lots of homes where I didn't agree with the seller or the buyer and their views, but it shouldn't stop them from title being transferred. They can fill their house with all of their hatred or whatever they want. I don't care. I'm not going. And where does it stop? I mean, if you were to notify your buyers, would you notify them if it had a rainbow flag? Would you notify them? How do we know what's in their head? We're not psychologists, although we feel like it oftentimes. And I think we just say, hey, look, here's this house, here's the size, here's the location. It checks all the boxes of what you're looking for, but,
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I don't know that it needs to be brought up. I'm with you. And if I conveyed that before, if the client brought it up, that would probably be the conversation I'd have. Like, yeah, this is kind of crazy town, might be an opportunity. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, here's the other thing I want to say. One of the most important things that we as realtors do, there's a lot, but probably one of the most important things we do is we de-emotionalize transactions. Our job is to take emotions out and inject logic. I've been in many transactions where the buyer starts to hate the seller. And my job is to remind them, you know what, you're not buying that guy, or you're not buying that gal, or you're not buying them. They're not going to be around. When you move into that house, they're going to be a distant memory and they're never going to be around. So let's just focus on the transaction. What you don't want to do is be the opposite of that. And maybe where the client otherwise would have been like, oh, that's a weird flag, but let's go see it. I like that location. Where we're injecting like, oh boy, this is racism. And we can't support that because now we're helping somebody that's a racist by buying their house and we're giving them money. And so we have to be really careful about that. I absolutely agree.
That's I call that lighting a powder keg theory. And I'm going to tell you a little evil thing I do, but we come up here at Thanksgiving and we have like all of our family surrounded. And I like to steal away and play Wii Mario Kart with my nieces, right? And she'll say, hey, Uncle Joe, you want to play Mario Kart? And I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, just give me 10 minutes. And they're like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm just going to light a powder keg. And then we'll be down there, we'll have wine, and I'll bring up some like really controversial topic, and we'll all start discussing it. And then I leave and play Mario Kart. And like 2 hours later, they've been arguing and yelling at each other and discussing this topic. And as realtors, our job is not to light powder kegs with our people.
No, it's not. And let's just say that the powder is very dry these days. It doesn't take much.
Yeah, Smokey the Bear says no forest fires right now. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I want to read a couple more comments. We've got some great comments here. Emily Hetrick again. Basically, they compared the more controversial items to things like as light as sports stuff. Makes it sound like I understand. She also said, also a big difference between a rainbow flag and a Confederate flag. One is love, one isn't, but that's not our call in a position of representing clients. Eric Post, just a little word of warning. This one's good. The more you talk about those sorts of things, the more chances you get baited into a conversation that may violate fair housing. So all good points. All good points. Let's move on, Joe. I think you've got one more. Is that right?
He's got a 7-minute hard exit, so we'll
showing
keep it
time.
brief. Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about this, Joe. I honestly don't use showing time, and by your post, it sounds like I should.
What raised that question is it has never been brought up in masters. It's like the old, do you get rid of your virtual fax number, right? And there was a time that all of us kept a fax number for the people who couldn't get on board digital signing or scanning and emailing. So we kept it for the people that were lagging behind the times. And then there's a point where like nobody really has a fax number anymore. Showing time isn't for everybody. You have the people that like to, call first, call the seller, call the agent, set up an appointment, and then show it. You have a lot of people that love showing time, and showing time's really gaining legs right now. And I want to have both. I want to have showing time for the people that prefer that. I want to have them call the seller and find out a time that's good for them. But if you use them both in tandem, then it's going to be a choreography nightmare for the seller. They're going to have to look at their showing time calendar and then talk to this person to make sure there's no overlap. So I made a decision to only do showing time. If someone doesn't know how to do it, they can call me and I will do it for them in like 30 seconds on my phone. Awesome. And then my sellers have a schedule. The other realtors know that time is blocked out. It's very safe, no double showings, and everybody wins. But I think we're at the tipping point for those brokers who don't use showing time need to consider learning how to do it.
Mm-hmm. So, and it's been something we've talked about for years, where there's just an inefficiency in that process, and I think technology with showing time is finally, what needs to change that. I liked what I just heard you say, Joe, and I don't know if it was in this thread, because I think that is the challenge, is people go, well, what's the point in setting it up if no one's going to use it? Well, tell them to call you and you'll do it for them. And hopefully, we are at a tipping point where more and more people will use it. I'm gonna actually get into this and start looking into this more. Would you want to just tell our listeners, like, what you do, how it works? Like, do you get to choose the length of time? Is it 30 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Is it an hour for the showings? What are the options with that? How does it work? Give us a high level overview of how you use showing time. Take a listing live, it's owner occupied.
Yeah, so it says, do you want to enable showing time? You click yes. And then
that's on RMLS, right?
In RMLS. And it takes you to showing time. And then it has so many settings that you can use that it just says, how much notice does your seller need, if any? Are there any blocked out? So you could say 4 hours,
24 hours, 2 hours.
Yeah, 1 hour, 0 hours. Are there any restrictions? Any time between noon and 2, for example, if you have an infant that takes a nap during that time? So you can exclude the calendar. You can have crossover showings, or you can say everyone booked is their own showing and somebody else has to book a different time. So there's probably a good 20 or 30 options. It will notify your seller of their preference. If they prefer to know by text, if they prefer to know by email, if they prefer to know by both, they can just get notified as sort of an acknowledgement. Hey, someone's going to be there at 1 o'clock today, or they can actually tap their app and approve it. And then they have their calendar and they know everything right there. People can give feedback to the listing, and people are giving feedback to the listing, because all of those other platforms, like, people hate them and they never do it. People are starting to give feedback on showing time. You can choose whether the seller sees it or doesn't see it. So it's really slick. The only reason I wouldn't use it is if my seller was particularly elderly or not very techy or something in that regards.
Mhm.
Everybody else, it seems like a very acceptable, perfect option for notifications, and it's almost instantaneous.
Talk about vetting buyers. Like if you have a listing where the seller's like, I only want pre-approved buyers, or I mean, especially in the COVID area, I only want serious buyers. How would that integrate? Could it? Is that challenging?
Well, how do you know how serious a buyer is?
Could you? I guess they could set up the showing and then you be notified and you call them. Is that an option?
Yeah, I could call every single broker that is bringing a buyer and kind of find out the level of their qualifications and seriousness. But, there's a certain responsibility that I would hope that broker is making sure people are qualified before they get in their car, and it's not the neighbor wanting to see how they decorate or if they can see their bedroom window from their den window, So I leave that to the other broker most of the time.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm not saying on every listing, Joe. I'm just talking about that one-off and maybe on that one-off you don't use it. I'm very, very impressed with your post, Joe. Again, I'm gonna out myself. I don't use showing time, and I'm reading all of these threads like showing time. It's so simple and efficient. Showing time all the way. Use it properly is very effective for both agents. So. I've got some great people on my team that I'm just going to throw this out and say, let's start.
I'll tell you what I didn't know that I discovered. And Grady Nelson, who posted here, helped me out a lot. We talked twice for about 20 minutes each. And so the sellers don't download showing time. That's for realtors. Their version is something called like My Home powered by Showing Time or something like that. And when you add them as the sellers and their contact information and their preferred way of being notified, it sends them the app that the sellers are supposed to download. And then that's pretty perfect. So they have a different app. I didn't know because I'm just learning all about it. And I said, well, I think you download showing time. And then when I actually put them in, sorry about that.
An old school landline. There you go, waiting.
Yeah, you're getting a fax, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Dial up.
When I put them in, they got information regarding, hey, here's the app you need as a seller. And and he texted me and he said, this thing is the greatest thing in the world. My client.
That's him calling to tell you again. Yeah.
My 1015 is here.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we're at 12:15. Yeah,
last two comments, and then we can get off the air because I know it's your stop. Emily Hetrick had a couple more comments. She said, "Showing time saved my butt a couple weeks ago. I had a listing with 47 showings in 3 days. That's a lot of showings. No way I could have kept up with that, which I believe." And she said, "Plus, it's great for maintaining COVID distancing." By the way, it was my first time using it. I'm a fan now. So. Very, very popular and I see a wave of momentum for showing time, and I'm all over it. And I'm gonna check this out. And one of these next shows, I'll tell you guys my takes on it, thoughts. So.
Great. We have a convert.
You have a convert. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
there we go. Well, hey guys, I think we did good for our first Best of Masters live, huh? It turned out all right. We pulled it off. Nice work.
Yeah. We were
Yeah.
able to address all our comments, go through, screen it. We're getting good at this.
Yeah, you proved me wrong with my opinion on air, so yeah, it worked out for you pretty good today.
Thank you, Angie.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. This will wrap up this week's show. Maybe we'll see you with Kurt next week or another, big name guest. We'll see what we can do behind the scenes, but we'll see you guys soon. Thanks again for listening to our show, and make sure to tune in next week for another great episode of the Portland Real Estate Podcast.